Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Joined today by my good friend Mark Ostrander. Mark, I spoke to GT earlier this week, Monday or probably Tuesday, for about 45 minutes. Great to talk to him. Wished him a happy belated birthday, which I know we want to do on the air. You want to take a minute and wish GT a happy birthday, sir?
Yeah, happy birthday, Grant. You're not aging fast enough to catch up with this, so that doesn't do me any good. But it's still doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing.
He's one of the hardest working men in show business, man. Like, for real. That dude covers so many sports, so many travel miles. Always a smile on his face, and always makes the person he's talking to feel important, because that person is important to him. And that's a rare trait in a person or a friend. So we're blessed that Grant is a part of the podcast. We're blessed that he's our friend, and blessed that on the border brawl side of things that I get to work with him and Shane. So a truly heartfelt happy birthday to GT. Also want to mention real quick that the Beach Nationals are going to be in Huntington Beach probably as this comes up. So for the first time ever, USA Beach Nationals are coming to California. It'll take place in iconic Huntington Beach alongside the historic Huntington Beach Pier. Wrestlers from across the U.S. are expected to join a strong contingent of rising stars from California, which might make this the biggest beach wrestling event ever. 15 states are already registered, including some of the top senior level stars in the sport. World champion Eliana Bomarito and numerous other current and former world team members are expected to compete. The top three placers from each event qualify for the 2025 world team. The 2023 Beach Nationals, held in Carolina Beach, drew over 350 entries from 30 states. California has burst onto the national scene with over a dozen events last summer, and already as many this season. Registration is now open on themat.com. Event is open to all ages, and will be broadcast on Flow Wrestling. So Todd Blank's been great to work with, Ed Duncan. Those guys are awesome human beings trying to grow the sport in a different channel. Our podcast last week, I guess we had technical difficulty somewhere between here and Paris. We didn't get it to Gary. So we covered half of the Olympics last week. We're just going to cover all of it this week.
Okay.
Marco. So let's start with Greco. We had 4 athletes out of the 6 there. 3 went 0-1, 1 went 0-2. Joe Rao ended up placing 9th based on, I guess, classification points or who you lose to. So congratulations to him. I'm friends with Kamal Bey. Saw him post a lot of stuff on social, pretty much asking people to stop criticizing Greco. And I feel for that. I was telling somebody the other day, when I was 22, I was ranked pretty high in the ladder in Greco. And but I also had a chance to make good money and coach with my dad. And it's a hard decision, because right now, if you make the U.S. world team in freestyle, men's and women's, I think you feel like you have a pretty good chance to medal. And I think, even our latest stat show, like 50% of them did. And this year, 0% of the Greco ones did. And that's not a criticism. That's just math. 0 for 6, 0 for 4, however you want to do it. And so, I will always bang the drum that when you stop wrestling anything, any style from 18 to 23, and the rest of the world's doing it, that's where the people are going to catch you or pass you. Because up to the age group, the U15s, U17s, even to a lesser extent U20s, America does pretty well in Greco, right?
Yes, it does. And it's just, it's not ingrained in our culture yet. Maybe someday it will be. Maybe these younger kids that are coming out doing really well in Greco will stay with it and make that movement possible. But, yeah. I mean, I actually like watching the younger age groups doing it. It's really neat to watch the way they've transitioned. Some of these clubs are really getting into the Greco part of it. And I know in Iowa they are. So, and I think our U16 team did really well in Greco. in the state or for the, United States part of it. I think they won it out at Utah, if I'm not mistaken, David. Or maybe it was U14s. I can't remember, but
no, it's interesting to see Iowa getting better at Greco, right? Because that's historically been a hardcore leg grabbing state, right?
Yep.
And I don't mean that in any way sarcastic, or maybe that's not. Certain states have gravitated towards Greco more than others, and Iowa.
Like Minnesota used to be always really good at Greco.
Yeah.
But they spent time doing it. I'm not sure how many of the other states, and now it looks like some of these other states are actually spending time with it. I know Pennsylvania's starting to get better at Greco. Utah has always been pretty good. But, I mean, there's just a select few states that are really good at Greco, and Iowa's starting to be one of them.
Yeah. I'm not really worried about the states. I think, if you take a couple people from each state, we're going to have a good national level Greco team at the age groups. And it's just finding ways. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time. I've seen talk about the Olympics, but I just think in general, like the RTCs are not going to bring Greco guys in. Like it doesn't help the college guys. At least that's the perception. So a lot of it's money. Like if you're really good at freestyle, you get money to wrestle. So, all right, let's go to some amazing success stories. Excuse me. The women's freestyle team. We had Hildebrandt win gold. We had Amit win gold. We had Helen win bronze and Blades win silver. Kayla lost a heartbreaker in the quarterfinal 6-6. Dom went 0-2. So, but 4 medals, 2 gold. The Hildebrandt saga, unbelievable, right? And we talked about this last week, so we'll quickly summarize it. She comes out of the bottom side of the bracket. She was, I think, the 3 or the 6 seed. I can't remember because she wrestled the other one in the quarter, but came through the bottom side, wrestled great, really was in control of all the matches. Some of the matches were sort of close in score, but I don't think she was ever behind, which probably a leading indicator that you're going to win the match. And then Vinesh beats the Japanese wrestler who's considered pound for pound, especially on the women's side, probably one of the 3 best women in the world.
Yeah.
Vinesh beats her, makes it to the finals, and doesn't make weight the next morning by 100 grams, which is basically like a can of soda is 355 grams to kind of put it in perspective for people.
Yeah.
So, and that's 12 ounces. So not a lot. And because she missed weight, we're used to if you and I are in the finals and I miss weight, you just win.
Yes.
Well, that's not what happens. Apparently the person that, like, if you beat Grant in the semis, he now gets to wrestle in the finals. Now, the next logical question in this was, okay, well, if Grant is now in the finals, okay, do the people that Grant beat get to go into the repechage? And the answer is no. And the answer is no because none of them knew they had to make weight. Okay, so, and there's no way you could have told them they needed to make weight because Vinesh was right up to the last minute trying to make weight. There's no way you could call these people that fast. And even if they could, there's no way in the world they weigh 110 pounds. So once they're out of the tournament. So Hildebrandt wins in the finals. I know you're not a big social media guy, and I'm less of a social media guy than, like, I think it's an age thing, right? And I mean, and I'm not teasing you, but just I think the younger you are, the more you are on social. You should go follow Sarah Hildebrandt and go back and look at her posts. They are just so heartwarming. Like, she just put one up yesterday about her brother, Drew. It was really raw and honest, like how sometimes she's difficult to work with, and these are her words. I'm paraphrasing, but like sometimes she's not the best person to want to train with, that he helped bring her joy, that she stopped focusing on winning. And, you hear this all the time from people that are winning, right? Like, don't focus on winning. And, but she didn't even focus on the process. She said, on becoming a better person through wrestling. and then her brother kept it light and kept it fun. And, you know, her brother was a 125-pounder at Central Michigan and Penn State. So it's like, you know, I had a brother that was a workout partner for me. You know, the siblings are different, man. It just hits you differently. You know, like when you can help your sibling accomplish a goal or they can help you accomplish a goal. It's a different kind of love, if that makes sense. So let's talk about, what do you think about, you know, I mean, obviously you're happy and everything else, but I thought Sarah was super impressive how she wrestled, super fundamental. I know you look at it not only from an emotional standpoint, but from a former coach's perspective. So what
I think her technique was spot on. She didn't make bad decisions. She stayed out of the upper body where she had been in trouble in the past in crucial situations. So it's nice to see her stick to a game plan and actually execute it flawlessly. Like you said, even in the finals, she was never even challenged, you know, and even in the finals. And it's somebody she had teched, you know, earlier in the year at the Pan American Games, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, you couldn't be happier for her. You know, starting that first day of the Olympics, first 2 days, we had two women vying to go into the finals, and you're thinking, Japan happened to get beat in both of those weights early on. Now they got to come back, obviously, and wrestle for bronze because their person made it to the finals. But, you know, we jumped out to such a fast start. I thought the women were just going to run with it because they looked so good.
Yeah. So the other weird thing about this, and I say this to me, this is really weird, right? Like the Olympics are sort of the pinnacle of our sport, right? People can argue other things are, and it's just commercialized. But when we all grow up, we want to be on a Wheaties box for being an Olympic champion. Team scores, like half the people don't even know how it's kept. And I'm not even sure how it's kept after sixth place, you know, like, because it's all these classification points and they go down to 10th. But I mean, the system is basically 25 for first, 20 for second, 15 for both thirds, 10 for both fifths, and then 8, 6, 4, 2. And Gary Abbott and Justin Tritz explained it to me, and I should have wrote it down, and I can go look it up. But the other thing is you don't know. So like in the NCAAs, right? Like it's hard to explain to somebody if you're sitting next to somebody who's never seen wrestling, or like somebody like your wife who's seen wrestling but is not a hardcore wrestling fan, and you're from Iowa. So somebody from Iowa wins in the quarterfinals at the NCAAs, and you go, that's awesome. That's 7 points, right? Because it's 1 for advancement and 6 for sixth. And like, how is that 7? The last round it was 1.
Yeah.
I mean, right? And it makes sense to us because we've programmed our brains that way. But it doesn't really make sense. Let me rephrase it. It makes sense. It's not a natural leap in logic. Okay, that's probably a better way to say it, right? So the problem with these weight classes are until somebody makes the finals, you don't know what anybody is. And then you immediately know, okay, the 2 finalists are good for 20. Then you can add 5 to the winner. And the 2 semifinal losers are good for 5th at a minimum. Okay, because they don't wrestle for 6th. But then the rest of it, you're just figuring out. So Japan had just a wrecking ball of an Olympics.
Yeah.
I think 8 gold medals total, something insane. But, you know, Japan ended up with 2 bronze, 4 gold on the women's side. I mean, it's crazy. So I pulled up Hildebrandt's bracket. She went 10-0, 7-4, 5-0, 3-0. So, I mean, clearly she only gave up points in 1 match.
Yep.
And she's a perfect testament to somebody, because there's going to be a compare and contrast here to Amita Lohr. So Hildebrandt, grinding, always the best woman in our country for years. Couldn't get over the hump on the world stage. Okay, it's not a criticism, it's just a fact. Silver.
Well, the hump is, but she's been bronze, she's been silver.
But she's going there to win the tournament. Okay.
Yes.
So the hump is to win the tournament. Okay. I mean, in that scenario. She's a great wrestler. She's a great wrestler. She went 0-1 at the Worlds, okay? Or at the Olympics, excuse me. But now she goes into an echelon, and that gold medal sort of justifies all these other medals to an even higher degree. Like, this is a much smaller thing, but like, I won 3 state titles. Like, nobody can say I got lucky my sophomore year when I ran them off my junior and senior year and didn't have a close match closer than 11 points. Like, you can't say you got lucky. I mean, you can, but it doesn't hold. It's probably not going to hold up in court.
Yeah.
So, just, you know, and we'll say this over and over. Like, I think all the athletes on our team carry themselves the right way. They all seem like genuinely great human beings, but couldn't be happier for her. We'll go through this by medals. So 68. So Allure was probably the one athlete that we all picked in the journalist contest to win that we were right about. You know, especially on the American side, right? And she had the draw of having the world champ at this weight class round 1, because Allure, for people that don't know, came down from 72, which is the non-Olympic weight. She goes 10-2, 8-0, 10-0, 3-0. So again, both these young ladies shutouts in 3 of the 4 matches. She's so freaking good, bro. Like, I saw a little snippet of Bo Nickel talking about, like, people need to remember her name. Like, she won U20s, U23s worlds 2-3 years in a row. You know, she probably would have won 20s and 23s this year if she wanted to. She just didn't, because she's trying to get ready for the Olympics.
Sure.
I don't know how many cycles she has left in her, because I can imagine she'd probably go to MMA or BJJ and be an absolute superstar. I mean, if she's fighting at 136 pounds. I mean, she could make 135, you know, on a 36-hour weigh-in, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
She's top 15 in the world in that right now without ever putting on small gloves. You know, because all she had to do is know how to defend herself, and somebody gets within arm's reach of her and they're dead. Because she's actually really good at jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah.
So she talked a lot about, people talked a lot about her, about overcoming anti-Semitism, and she's had deaths in the family previously. She switched coaches. So again, no one's path has been easy to this, right? I mean, her path seemingly is easier because she won at a younger age, but an extremely hard worker, really technically sound, especially in the tie-up positions, right? Like 2-on-1s, underhook, really just basic positions, but she is fundamentally a freaking superstar, right?
Well, it's funny. She's another one, kind of like Sarah said, that she kind of lost the love for the sport and was able to find it again. And I don't know if that was through another coach, how she trained, but you're hearing this scenario kind of over and over again with some of these athletes, because it is a grind. I don't think people understand how hard the sport is day in and day out when you're training to be the best. Even in college, these guys just go through a rugged schedule. When you train 6 days a week, David, and you're putting in 2.5, 3 hours of just combat, it wears on your body. And these women and these men can do it over and over again, and then try to peak when you need to peak to be the best that you can be. It's hard on you. And she kind of fell out of love with the sport. And then I think she went to a new coach, moved out to California, and said she found it again, the love for the sport. And thank God she loves the sport again in the United States, because you wouldn't want to wrestle anywhere else. She's phenomenal.
Well, I think we should also say thank God she cut to 68, because if she goes to 76, either her or Blades don't make the team. So, just an amazing story. The other thing is, I was out to dinner last night with a married couple and their 2 daughters, and their daughters both wrestle, and one's really good, just took 5th at Fargo. And she's wrestled in border brawl, so I know her a little bit. And I was like, how cool was it to watch the Olympics and watch these women win gold, silver, bronze medals from America? And she's had like the biggest grin on her face, right? Like just like, just to be able to see it and believe it. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
absolute unbelievable story there, right? So, all right, Kennedy Blades. Again, we'll go by the order of medals. Okay, so 76 kilos. She makes the finals, now she had a different pass. She went 11-0, where she put somebody on the poster for the USA Wrestling logo. 4-3, 8-6, and then loses to Kagami 3-1 on a takedown. She's the future, right?
Yep.
What'd you think about her performance?
Yeah, I thought she came out and just that first match was something special to watch. If you haven't watched it, go back and see if you can find it on Peacock. It should still probably be there. It was phenomenal way she performed. And I think just because of her age, David, and she hasn't been there before, every round got a little bit tighter for her. And it seemed like she just kept getting tighter and tighter. And, I think that's going to happen when you're that young and you haven't been in this big spotlight.
It's probably also a function of the opponents getting better and better.
Probably, but it seemed awfully tight. Well, there's other guys we're going to talk about that it seemed like it didn't, but then when it came down to the biggest match, it did. So I think that's something that's going to come with age. But yeah, she's definitely the future of our sport. She's going to be around for another, probably 2 Olympics, I hope, at least. And I expect huge things out of her.
So we've talked about this before. I didn't ask Izzy Martinez this, but I'm super interested to know if Blades cuts a lot of weight, because she's a tall young lady. Like she's like 6 foot, 6'1", maybe 6'2".
Probably.
Super lean. Okay. Like I'm hoping she walks at 170. Okay. Because if she just naturally matures and puts on some weight, which at her age is completely normal, then making that weight's going to be harder. There's definitely a push. I don't know if there's a push at the UWW level, but there's a push. There's people saying, hey, we need to add a bigger weight class for women. There's always a push on the wrestling side to add more weight classes, but I don't know if they would just spread them out more. I think 110 is a hard weight to make, right? Just like when we get to men, like grown men making 125.4 is not the easiest, right? Like if that weight class was 130,
sure,
maybe it's easier. Like if you bump it to 59 kgs. So, okay. Then Helen Maroulis, she's talked numerous times. I think she's done wrestling after this. 7-2, 7-4, loses to the gold medalist Sakurai 10-4, then comes back, hits a beautiful fireman's carry dump, whatever you want to call it, for third place. I think most people know Lee Pritz and I think it's fair to say, very good friends. I think Lee would say that too. And so to watch that, and I've had a chance to interview Helen, and I think Helen will always be, I think Helen's one of the, we could be talking about all these ladies, 30 years from now, but for her to win that gold medal in 2016 against the best wrestler in the world, I think just changed. I think it probably changed Terry Steiner. Like, you think you can, you hope you can, you're really probably sure you can. Like everybody's like, trust my process, and then it happens. And then it's all the fulfillment, it's all the justification of it works. Our process works, our system works. And we didn't win the Olympics, like as a team that year, didn't win it this year, clear second place team. But now people are watching this going, I can do it, right? And Amit talked about watching Helen do it, right? And, I just think Helen's had I don't like comparing people's careers, but I will say I think it's probably one of the more impactful careers because of the timing of it, okay? Because it happened first, right? It's like we get hung up on these 4-time national champs. It's like, Pat Smith did it first. It's like the guy that broke the 4-minute mile. People thought if you ran a 4-minute mile, you would die. So, I mean, it's hard to be first at something. And she did it. And she did it with grace and dignity. And I remember listening to an interview she did with Jim Rome, who's as mainstream as it gets and not a wrestling fan. I'm sure he doesn't hate wrestling, but he's not a wrestling guy. I was like, oh my God, like, this is what happens. So I don't know what she'll do next. I certainly hope she coaches or something in the sport of wrestling. But what an unbelievable ambassador she's been for USA Wrestling and for our sport, right?
Yeah, she's elevated the women's sport in the United States. I mean, I don't think you can, basically it was her and one other person probably on the female side, heavyweight that didn't make it this year, that just had twins.
Oh, Adeline.
I think those two changed women's wrestling in the United States and made it what it is today. So I think you have to give both of them credit for what they've done, Yeah.
And
without those two, David, I don't think we'd be where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I think Mensa Stock being African-American first, female African-American champion is significant too. But for sure, because Adeline was doing it before her, right? Like, Helen and Adeline been doing it for a minute, right?
But Adeline never won Olympic gold before.
No, but a truckload of world.
Oh, ton of worlds. Yeah, she was considered the best. So, but between those two, David, they transformed the sport for the United States. And now you have thousands and thousands of young ladies out there wrestling. I mean, their attendance is going to surpass the boys' attendance in Fargo, I think, in the next few years. It would not shock me one bit as fast as it's growing.
We were talking about how much that women's wrestling has grown. I was talking to some people off air about it. I did a podcast like a month ago and was talking about the numbers of girls, and you always want to say it the right way. Like, I think we were sort of told below college is girls and college and above is women's or ladies wrestling. So women's wrestling, but the girls wrestling at the high school level is just growing at astronomical numbers. And you and me have always said that I don't think it's like a hot take, but that the lessons we learn from wrestling are not gender. Like, well, hey, men or women can learn more from this sport than the other one. That's just a ridiculous assumption. You and me used to try to beat each other's brains out coaching and wrestling, and now we're the best of friends. And a big piece of that, I believe, is respect. Like, I've never asked why we became friends, but I know why I wanted to be friends with you is because I respected you. I mean, I still respect you, but like, it starts with that. And it starts with people willing to work hard and people, like if we lost to you, it's like, we just got to get better. If I beat your guy, it's like, we got to get better. It's not like that guy's doing something wrong or, they're cheating or something. No, we just got to get better. And so, I mean, I think to go back to Helen, just an absolute trailblazer. I got to talk to Pritz a little bit about working with her and he had some really cool things to say. I know the Larkin that wrestled in Border Brawl was her training partner over there. So really? I talked to Eric about it because Eric and Eric Larkin, the father, and Kyler was the training partner. And I was like, man, what a freaking experience that's got to be, right? Like, to be a high school kid. Like, Ayala got to go with Spencer. Spencer went with Dennis. Like I always say, the one thing I wish I'd done differently in my life was go to the state tournament before my freshman year when I was in it. Cause it's awesome now. We're talking about the Olympics, right? Like, we're on the air every week. We're on USA Wrestling. But when you're 14, you walk into that arena, you're like, I'm going to pee down my leg. Like, at least if you've been in there before, like, okay, it's different when you're on the floor, but it's still, at least a little bit. For kids like Kyler Larkin, and I can call him a kid, he's just probably going to step on the Arizona State campus on Monday, as a student for the first time, and an absolute great ambassador at his age for the sport, posting videos, talking about learning, did a lot to help us with Border Brawl. For him to be around not only Helen, but that whole crew, right? Like, you just mature. Yep. Your brain has to hurt, how much you're taking in. So awesome experience for that crew. Dom Parrish.
And one other thing, Helen's got the greatest smile known to man. Her smile just lights up a room. And she was so happy that she got a bronze. It meant so much to her to come back and get that. And I think it meant a lot to what she stands for in women's wrestling.
Well, listen, if you know it's your last match, right? Like you want to end on a dub, right?
Yep.
And I like we'll get to Spencer, and he talked about his disappointment in silver. And you can argue historically, like people may not think that much of a difference between second and third. Certainly a huge difference between first and second.
Yep.
There's a big difference between third and fifth. Like nobody puts on their resume, I took fifth at a place where they give out 3 or 4 medals. The only people that do that was the accomplishment of their life was taking fifth. So Parrish goes 0-2, two LBFs, and then Miracle. So she was the 8 seed. She wins 12-2. She loses to the 1 seed 6-6. And then the 1 seed loses 9-2 in the semis. And then that woman loses 12-1 to Matoki in the finals. So disappointing for her because she's been at that knocking on the doorstep so many times, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's kind of go reverse order here. Kind of worst to first performance for us. 125 on the men's side. This one shocked me, Mark. Paris goes 0-1, loses first round of the Mongolian 10-5, who draws Geno, who ended up winning it. Or no, I'm sorry, draws the Azerbaijani wrestler, who techs him, and then that guy gets beat 7-0 by Geno. Really surprised. And then the Geno-Zare match, I hope you watched it, was unbelievable. So Geno gets up 10-1 on him and hits a gut wrench to tech him. They obviously throw brick, nothing to lose. They rule it out of bounds. Zare comes all the way back 10-9. Geno had 4 cold sprays and whatever else, but held on and did everything within the rules. That's all legal. And then did the crown move. And people that don't know, Zare did it first. And I'm, like, it's like a 6-year-old. Well, Mom, Mark punched me first,
Yeah.
Right? But I talked to GT and he said, like, if you know Geno, like you can't help but be happy for him. So, talk to me about the weight class, not only about Paris, but just the whole weight class.
I was disappointed in Paris' performance, obviously, and I'm sure he was.
For sure.
I don't know if the moment was too big. He was wrestling well at the time that he went in because he won a ranking series a month before the Olympics. He won that, and Geno was in that and did not place. So, you would have thought he was ready to go. But like you said, it's a big stage, and if you've never been there and never been in it, but he's been in the world. Maybe the Olympics was just bigger and better for him and just wasn't prepared. Mentally, he probably wasn't prepared for it. And I don't know why.
I don't know if he wasn't prepared, just didn't wrestle as good as he can. I mean, like there's a million reasons, right? Maybe the other guy just wrestled the match of his life. Like that's the whole thing, right? Like it's a data point thing, right? Like if you're way better than me at golf, but if we play 18 holes in anything, I have no chance of beating you. If we play 1 hole or 1 shot closest to the pin and, I have a chance. Might be 1 in 100, but I don't have 1 in 100 chance on 18 holes. I don't have 1 in 100 chance on 9 holes, so, and that's the any given day thing. And like, that's sort of the difference between like wrestling and then like hockey or basketball where it's best out of 7. Generally in best out of 7, the best team wins. Yeah. So, and that's why they do.
It was not a great week for Michigan RTC. Let's put it that way. They just.
Yeah, I don't want to get too critical.
I'm not saying it's whose fault it was or whatever it was. It's just everybody has bad performances. You just hate to see it happen when you're one of the top 3 guys in the world at your weight. And I truly believe Paris is one of the top 3 heavyweights and wasn't able to go out and prove it.
Well, no, he was able to go out and prove it. He just didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he was given the opportunity. He got it. I mean, that was one of the weight classes that you thought the draw's fair, right? Like the 4 best guys got seeding criteria, that kind of stuff. So, okay, 65 kgs, St. Rutherford. So Rutherford loses. Let me find him here in the bracket. So he loses to the Iranian, who then beats Dudiev and then beat Musakayev, which I remember texting him like, this isn't good. Like, he's going to have to be. And then tech falls Musakayev. And then he loses to Kyoka 10-3. Then Zane gets pulled back through and does not end up wrestling because of a concussion. I mean, but there's some crazy, I'm not saying crazy, but like Haji Aliyev goes 1-1. Austin Gomez goes 0-1. And probably the person's name we're not putting enough respect on is Sebastian Rivera, right? Like, I think we see Sebastian Rivera as the guy that never won NCAAs. I think some people go, we took the easy path, like didn't try to go through the USA qualification system, did the Puerto Rico thing. But Sebastian Rivera made the world finals, right? Like, he didn't backdoor at Last Chance or didn't backdoor at Pan Am's at an Olympic weight. Like, didn't place at 70 and figure out a way to drop down.
Yep.
Did it. And then his path was he beat the Australian, which is a really good draw first round tech fall. Loses to the Japanese wrestler 8-6, gave that guy his closest match, but loses in the quarters. So he's got to wrestle 2 matches in the backside. He beats the Moldova wrestler 15-4, has a barn burner of a match for third, wins 10-9. This is okay. So I still get to coach some guys at a fairly high level. And I loved what he said. He's like, it was 8-8, and I wanted Buxton to throw a brick. Jeff Buxton, for the 5 people that don't know who that is, the legendary Blair coach and still coaching at the senior level, involved with the New Jersey RTC, obviously, with Rivera. And Rivera said, or Buxton said, wrestle. Like, not throwing a brick because you're tired. And if he had thrown the brick, he would have lost it. And then he had the brick when he needed it and flipped the match because the call went the other way. It was 9-8, and they didn't give him a takedown. But now he's got the brick, and it's semi-YOLO brick, we think we're right, but you have to have the brick in your hand. And so one thing I see is coaches get emotional. I don't want to make this conversation about Buxton. It should be about Rivera, but the coaches that can stay rational and save that brick, and it doesn't always work out. Sometimes, like, there was no other things to do. But I remember, like, Seth Gross's corner threw a brick against Joe Colon in the first scramble. You're like, what are you doing? Like, these guys are going to get in 9 scrambles that are 50-50.
Yep.
You got to save it. But, I mean, your thoughts on Rivera coming up huge. And, imagine if USA Wrestling, I think if we'd had those points, we'd have won the unofficial team title.
Possibly. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.
We'll look that up while we're talking. Go ahead.
What the unofficial was, but yeah, I thought he did an outstanding job, David. I couldn't be more happy for Seabass watching the way he's progressed, because he's not a big 65-kilo kid, but he looked really good. He's actually started to grow into that weight, I thought. And he's determined. He'll get into a battle with you. He's going to go. He doesn't care if it's 15-14. He's going to keep coming. And I do think the coach made the right decision by not throwing the brick the first time. I wish Seabass all the luck in the world. And it's tough to make the U.S. team, David. I can't blame the kid for going to another country and wrestling when they don't have to go through.
It's a different path
that the United States does.
So here's what people need to understand. The path is similar but different. To go make the Puerto Rico team or to go make the Mexico team, you have to be the best in your country. But like for these guys, it was just like go down for a weekend and kill everybody. Like in America, the US Open's brutal, and then you have Final X. So that's a huge difference. Once you make the team, the path is the same. Okay. You have to place at the Worlds, the Pans, or the Last Chance. By the way, self-correction, America had 62 points, Japan 78, Iran 83. The third place points for the United States would have brought them to 77, which would still been just a point behind Japan for third. So it would not have made a difference. Certainly would have made it closer.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, let's go to 97. This was another weight that was really surprising to me. Now, we did the pool, and by the way, the journalist pool, by the way, you did great. I think you're in the top 5 in your pick, so congratulations. Well done. I mean, I say that sincerely, like, well done. So the fact that I had to submit your picks for you because you're unwilling to send an email, I feel like there should be a gigantic asterisk next to it, but nonetheless, well done, sir.
Did I beat Grant?
Well, Grant didn't submit picks.
There you go. I beat Grant. See? Grant
I think I probably should not have put Grant in that position because
you put that $20 bet out there, and Grant said, I don't want any part.
Mark, you know I will give you $20 worth of wings anytime.
I don't want $20 worth of wings. I just want Grant to say yes. I knew I wasn't.
Grant wasn't even on the call, so he doesn't even know.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get to the real thing. So Snyder wins 9-5, got behind early, which surprised me, then wins by fall, and then wrestled Tazadinov. And we talked about it. I'm like, I just think that's a really big hill to climb, right? Like Tazadinov's the worst matchup for him. Not like just style, like he's taller, okay? So it's really hard to get his leg off the mat, his foot off the mat. He's young, but he's really good tactically. He's great at holding center. The one time Snyder got his leg in the air and they're in that sort of side-by-side position, Snyder let the leg go. Like it's like he was worried he was going to get rethrown, inside stepped, reaped, escalated, elevated, whatever you want to call it. And normally you see Snyder just walk that guy to the edge and then work on getting 2 versus 1. You know, Snyder played the shot clock game and was doing okay with it. Tadzadinov took 2 shots, converted both. That was the match. And then Tadzadinov wins by fall. So, I mean, it was, you know, Tadzadinov only won 4-3 first round. I think that's probably what we should have. I guess you could say, well, we should have rooted for that. But then Azarpira was the one that wrestled him close, and that's who Snyder lost to for third. That match wasn't really close either. It was 4-1. We're probably responsible, or I am. I jinxed him. He was 9 for 9 in world medals. I don't think like the sky is falling with Snyder. I just think like somebody pointed out to me, maybe it was you. I don't remember. I talked to so many people about wrestling. I think it might have been GT though. Like he's kind of stopped shooting his low single. And he was really good at that. And that low single makes you wrestle differently. Like you don't feel as comfortable being heavy on your feet and pushing because you don't want to walk into that. And he stopped shooting it, and he would shoot it at heavyweight, like he shot it on Gwiz.
Yep.
So I don't know if he feels like he's a step slower, and this may sound really dumb. I don't know if he's forgotten about it. I mean, it's hard to believe that he stopped shooting low singles hanging out at Penn State, right? But the empirical evidence shows that happened. Your thoughts on 97?
Yeah, I always thought if he was really good at getting underneath guys and then taking them off the mat for one, because he kept such good positions, and he would just kind of on his knees run a guy off the mat and get his one. If he couldn't finish it the way he wanted to, he was strong enough to just take him right off the mat. And I didn't see him doing that at all this weekend. He did have some push outs, but was not his best tournament. I've seen him wrestle, but I don't see him retiring from the sport. I think he's going to stick around, do another quad, and I think he's going to still.
Yeah, let's not even put that out in the universe. I don't think anybody was saying that. I mean, I think if you go through these weight classes so far, like I think Zane's done because he already had a job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Paris is done unless he's going to go
No.
try to play football. He might go try to play football. Okay,
Yeah.
like he was a really good two-sport athlete, so I don't think we can just summarily say he's not going to do that anymore. I mean, if Gable Stevenson, who never played football, is playing in preseason games, it's a mathematical possibility that Paris is considering it. Okay, so let's not just go no way. All right, but I mean, and we'll get to the other guys, but yeah, I mean, Snyder's talked about wrestling till he's 40. I mean, I think he'll make adjustments. So, by the way, non-Olympic world team trials are the weekend of the September 14th in Omaha. So we'll preview that more, but just, talking about non-Olympic weights. Okay. Bronze medal, Aaron Brooks. So he drew the number 1 seed. By the way, like, listen, I'm a USA homer as much as everybody. When people are like, oh, they're drawing all these number 1 seeds and the best people. Okay. Well, number 1, if you don't go score points in the system, then you can't really complain about where you're drawn. Okay, number 2, if you wrestle at a non-Olympic weight, going in, you're going to get drawn in. So like Zane, Amit, those kind of people. Number 3, the number 1 seed was, in a lot of cases, not the best wrestler, okay? Like, and I'm not saying retroactively. Like, going into 86, the best wrestler was Hassan Yazdani. And he got hurt in the finals and took 2nd, but he was the 2 seed. So if you want to complain about a terrible draw, that would have been the bad draw. Okay? And then you can argue it's a good draw because you're going to get pulled back through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, almost all these people have unbelievable credentials. I mean, and I don't really want to have a conversation of how there's 40 people in a world bracket and 16 in Olympic weight. Just do the math. The 40 are already the best. You're getting rid of 60% of those people. So Brooks wins 4-3, then 11-1 over Ishiguro, which he looked amazing. Then he loses 4-3 in the semi to Ramazanov. Okay. And then we'll go back to that match. Then he wins bronze 5-0 over Shapiev. The Ramazanov match was interesting. Like, listening to Burroughs, he's like, well, he's just softening him up. And listen, these guys are 1,000 times better than I was. But Brooks' attack rate is usually higher. Now, your attack rate is usually higher when you're going to score or not get scored on. But he didn't attack as much. I mean, that's just another mathematical fact. When that happens, it's going to come down to a few key exchanges. There was, to me, 2 exchanges that killed him. The first one was that unbelievable scramble at the beginning of the second period where he gets in, puts him to a hip. Ramazanov bounces up, comes around Brooks. Brooks goes elbow. I'm moving in case anybody's watching this to catch the go behind hand, clears out. That felt like if it's a video game character, took some of the energy off the bar there. And then when Ramazanov did the go behind and did the bent leg Turk and Brooks stopped it, first of all, I didn't know your spine could go in that direction and not get turned. But I think that took a lot of juice out of him. And listen, I'm a play within the rules, but you can go right up to the edge of the rules. If I was him, I would have cold sprayed. Because, like, I talked to people, and they're like, well, so people that didn't see the match, Brooks gets in late. He's in on a low single. He's kind of holding on it with 2 hands, which is really not what you teach. You go outside hand, post, get height, knee slide, run corner, whatever, sit out. Some way, don't stay there. And Ramazanov did what he needed to do. He went to like that Askren re-single position and then changed it. And once Brooks's head went down, and we all know this, once your head's below your butt, you're probably in trouble height-wise. I just think Brooks, people are like, all Brooks had to do is this. Well, first of all, stop. You never wrestled that level. Second of all, you think Aaron Brooks doesn't know that? I mean, stop with that too. He was tired. Your brain shuts down when you're tired. You don't do everything you know to do. And I think that Bentley, I think he's like, I'm good for 1 shot and I'm going to try to hang on. And he almost did. It was within 5 seconds, 3 seconds of winning it. And he bounced back super nicely. He was gracious in victory, even more gracious in defeat. But I think And for people that don't know, Ramazanov beat Yazdani. Yazdani wrestled on one arm in the finals, and again, couldn't have been more gracious with each other. Like, I understand we have political differences with countries, but I think a lot of these guys as individuals we'd really like if we were hanging out watching the UFC or eating barbecue with them or something. So your thoughts on Brooks and the weight class?
Yeah, I thought the weight class was really good. I thought Brooks wrestled well the whole weekend. I know he got into one position where you would have thought if he just kept his head up when he was in that position with like 15 seconds left and hung on that ankle, but it looked like he was actually losing the ankle, and I think that's why he pulled it down and put his head down, was
Right.
trying to hang on to that ankle, and that was not where he wanted to be, obviously. And, the guy did what you're supposed to do in that position, changed his positioning, went inside the thigh and lifted it up and just went right over the top and got his two, and that was the match. But I wasn't disappointed in the way Brooks wrestled. I thought he wrestled really well for being at Olympics for the first time. He's going to be our guy. He is our guy right now. And
so I think Brooks goes to 92.
I don't. I think he's going to stay right where he's at.
I'll bet you another $20 that at the World Championships in 25 that he's at 92.
All right, we'll do that.
Okay. I just think, but either way, he's our guy.
He is our guy.
But I think that's a really hard weight cut for him. And I think it's not great for America because I don't think he's going to make 86 again unless like Snyder just dominates him and they'll know in the room. But I feel like our lineup there is Zahid, Brooks, Snyder, at that 86, 92, 97. But anyway, congratulations to Brooks. Congratulations to Ramazanov. Okay, we go to 74. So goofy weight here. First of all, they added 2 guys, which apparently you can do.
I've never seen pigtails in an Olympics before, but that's
we were told that was impossible, but then it's possible. So Jamalov, to be fair to this guy, the unfair thing is, or the argument against him is, he kind of got a really, really gift referee call against Valiev in the quarters.
Yep.
But Jamalov also had to wrestle a pigtail. But he goes 8-0, 11-3, 6-5 against Valiev, 8-2 in the semis, and then pins Takatani. So we're going to come back to Dake, but he gets him in a cradle, and he's got that same side cradle, and it's like, you have me in the cradle, but my shoulder is on your chest. Like, there's no way I'm pinned, right? So I talked to a buddy of mine about this, and he goes, dude, if you don't get out in 30 seconds, they just call you pinned. He goes, I've seen it literally 1,000 times. And he goes, no one complains. Like, that's just how it's done at the world level. If that's how it's done, then I don't think you have a complaint, right? Like, okay, that's how it's always done, then that's how it's always done. Takatani going up in the crowd afterwards and celebrate, like, listen, I'm half Japanese, and I grew up very Japanese. Like, I grew up with honor, eyes up, shake hands the right way, like speak when spoken to. I'm very much an extrovert now. My father's very much an introvert, and learned respect culturally. And I'm not saying if you're not Japanese, you can't learn respect, but just it's ingrained in that culture. And it's also ingrained in that culture to accept that if you do your best, losing is part of the process that can happen. And so I thought how that young man handled himself was unbelievably gracious. And, like there's a bunch of Americans trying to take pictures with him. Takatani also scored more points on Dake than probably anybody scored on Dake in like 2 years. Beat him 20-12 in the semis. Kind of a weird match in the sense that Takatani took all the shots. Dake really didn't take any shots. Takatani did what Sidakov did. When you get in there, like he'd attack Dake's right leg, but with his right hand, not his left hand, and then pick the foot up, fold it, which in folk style ends up in a lot of stalemates because you have to untangle yourself. But in freestyle, against a guy who's got a world-class head pinch and chest wrap, takes the guy's post out.
Yep.
And he kept shooting even after he was ahead, which was probably his best strategy. Dake's so good at that, I don't think he's used to sprawling. And so if you're not used to sprawling, then, it's hard to, in the Olympic semis in between periods, go, yo, man, we need to start sprawling, right? Like, hey, you need to switch your lead legs. Like, it's that ingrained in you. Dake, his path, just for people, he was the 1 seed. He had a pigtail bye, sorry. Then he had a tech and a fall, and then lost to Takatani, and then had kind of a bonkers match for third. He won 10-4. He was losing, wanted America to throw the brick. He got mixed up because the thing he wanted to challenge was he thought was in the other period, and you just can't. And then Dake did what I think, he just wrestled really hard and scored 6 points in 15 seconds and just blew the doors off of him. And I saw the interview afterwards, and I think it's certainly up in the air whether Dake keeps wrestling. He's 33. And these guys think about 4 years at a time, right? Like, not am I going to go practice in 2 weeks, right?
Sure.
Because I think that's the question everybody's asking. So your thoughts on this weight class and Dake, Takatani, whatever else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think in that match in the semis against Takatani, they've watched what Sidakov did to him, and they pretty much tried to go by his game plan, and it worked really well. On Kyle's behalf, Kyle said, nobody's ever been able to do that to me before. I like it when guys shoot on me because I'm able to score a lot of points, and found out it doesn't work so well when the guys are doing it the right way and had the positioning. So, it's like Kyle said, that's something I've got to work at. So by him saying that, I think he wants to wrestle some more. I'm not 100% sure he will, but I would like to see him wrestle at the Worlds next year to get that spot back. But yeah, that the bronze medal match where he was down, I think it was 4-1, David, after he lost the challenge, because it was 3-1, then he lost the challenge. But it was like a switch just turned on. He went out and there was less than a minute left, and he scored 6 points? Just like that, he got a takedown.
He scored 9.
Got another takedown, lifted him, threw him for 4, and that was it.
He could have scored 9 points if he wanted to.
Yeah.
He just was better than that guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting, right? Like, so much is being talked about these days about the ability to free your mind and free your body, right? Like, to go do what, whenever you see people compete in any sport, like, well, that wasn't my best, I can always get better. Well, what are they comparing that to? They're comparing it to practice, right? Well, there's not the same level of pressure in practice. I don't care how many simulation matches you do. I don't care how many artificial weight cuts you do. I don't care if it's in another sport, how much, if you're an NFL quarterback, how much artificial noise you bring in so it's hard to hear the signals, and you're doing silent counts and, foot snaps or, foot pounds for the snap count. Competition's competition. And I think it's probably a conversation for another day, but somebody said one of the reasons why they thought Rivera did well is he just wrestles a lot. He's wrestling in all these tournaments, right? And we've talked about how it's a funnel, right? Like, when you're 7, you can wrestle in 300 matches a year, right? There's all these tournaments, and probably kids get in 150, 200 matches a year. There's a whole podcast on how healthy that is, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, all that stuff, right? Then you get to college, and, when you and I wrestled, and I'm putting us in the same generation, they were talking about, we used to wrestle 40 matches. Now, a lot of these guys going to NCAAs are 17-1.
Yep. We used to go to at least 2 or 3 opens a year in college.
I'm not saying it's good or bad.
Yeah.
But it's the funnel is the funnel. And then example, if you take our athletes that medaled, right? They're already sitting in Final X next year to make the 25 world team. So they don't have to wrestle a match. Okay. Now, I believe that's the best system. It's kind of been proven out that this is really working well for USA wrestling. Okay. But they don't have to wrestle. And so it's kind of easy to say, well, I'm just going to keep practicing. I don't need to wrestle in these tournaments, stuff like that. So it's just fascinating, So, all right. Your boy, Spencer Lee. By the way, rumor has it there was an Ostrander over there at the Olympics. Can we confirm or deny?
We can confirm.
Do we need to get that guy on the podcast since he actually spent the time and money to go there? Should we replace, upgrade, downgrade, depending on how you want to look at it?
That would definitely be an upgrade right now, I think. So that probably wouldn't hurt.
Benny O went. So your family's numerous times really gracious. We all play fantasy football together. I got invited to Ben's wedding, but that's awesome. He got to go, and I know him and Beatty are buddies. And you said he surprised Beatty. Beatty didn't even know he was coming.
Yep.
Yeah. So cool. Okay. So Spencer Lee wrestles the Chinese wrestler Zhao, beats him 3-2. And that was the same guy that gave him a 10-9 match at the last chance. Then beats the Kyrgyzstan wrestler Almaz Ulu 12-2. Then 14-4 over Abdullayev. He's in the finals against Higuchi. Higuchi got a forfeit. If people go, why is there a forfeit at the Olympics? That's because Misik said he was out at the last minute. I don't think the Iranian also forfeited on the backside. Okay. Higuchi goes forfeit, 12-2, 10-0. And then we'll talk about the final in a minute. Roman Bravo Young went 0-1, got teched by the Armenian, who then lost to Abdullayev. Darian Cruz pinned the Egyptian, got teched by Higuchi, got pulled through the bracket, then got the forfeit over Sarlak from Iran, and then lost 13-5, so he finishes 5th.
Yep.
Okay, so the Higuchi match, Higuchi Lee goes up 2-0, 1-1. And the first one was really good because he was on the shot clock. Spencer was on the shot clock or activity clock, and he gets Higuchi to go out of bounds, gets him to go out of bounds again. Higuchi hits the most committed shot of the match, to be fair. Hit the most committed shot of the match, comes to the body. Spencer gets in that side-by-side wizard kick position, almost puts Higuchi on his back. Higuchi cartwheels over. Spencer hits his knee first, so it's not 4. But puts him on his back. For people that don't understand this, if it's a continuous motion but not feet to back, you don't get the takedown in the back points, which is very different than folk style. Okay,
Yep.
So now nobody complained about it in this match because it was against Spencer, but gets the 2. Again, if you don't understand the rules, and no problem, 1-2 beats 2 1s. It wasn't last point criteria, although it would have been that as well. And then Spencer goes for broke late and gets taken down, so the score's 4-2. I mean, the score's really 2-2, but you'd rather see Spencer lose 4-2 going for something than 2-2. Important to point out here, Misik didn't wrestle, Ugiev didn't wrestle. I think those guys are coin flips with Spencer and Higuchi. I think that's fair. I mean, Misik won the weight class a year ago.
Yep.
So, I think it's certainly fair to say at worst he's a coin flip, right? And then Ugiev, past world champion as well, different year. But so, I mean, full disclosure, Ben's really good friends with the guys at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. That's why he's there, right?
Yep.
He can go for whatever reason he wants. But and you're obviously close to the program. What are your thoughts on this Wade and Spencer?
Yeah, I was proud of the way Spencer wrestled. I think he went out. He changed up his way he was going to wrestle against the guy from China who had, he had beat 9-8 at the last chance. He didn't even give up his legs this match. So everything was basically push outs. I thought he wrestled a smart match, was never in danger. And then I thought he started doing Spencer things after that. He got 2 techs, absolutely dominated those 2 matches. It was just what he wanted to do. And then in the finals, you're wrestling probably one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the world, just like it's supposed to be. And I think Spencer has put himself there. I mean, you're talking 2-2 with less than 10 seconds left in the match. One scramble, it looked like Spencer was going to score on it. And, he didn't get it, obviously. And so I'm sure he's upset, but I think he handled it very well.
He was clearly upset, right?
Yeah.
Like he was clearly upset. And then, he walked it back and just said, hey, I'm proud to represent America Hawkeye Wrestling Club. And, I don't know Spencer Lee. The one time I talked to him, he was awesome. Like we were I won't go through those stories. He just was awesome. Yeah. Okay. So you're allowed to be upset when you're heartbroken. And he didn't say anything bad.
No.
He didn't talk junk on anybody else. He didn't denigrate. He did say like 20 years from now, nobody's going to remember who won the silver medal, which may or may not be true, but doesn't matter. You still won it. Like it's still an amazing accomplishment, right? So there's a lot there to sort of process, but, so overall we take 3rd as a country. I think there's people that are disappointed in it. I heard some crazy things like people saying, it's not good. All these guys are Nittany Lion. Okay, well, the year before when we killed everybody, it was good. I don't think Kale and company got worse at wrestling in the last 12 months. It's the world's hardest tournament. And I will defer and say, like John Smith told me, sometimes the worlds are harder because it's more matches and there's more guys. And there's guys that can beat you that can't win the tournament. But like, let's say I can reach back, headlock you or chin whip you and, and then even worse, then I'm going to get beat the next round. And then, now you went from being the favorite to being out of it. But on its worst day, the Olympics is one of the 3 hardest tournaments in the world. Okay. And we just, like, if you look at it, you go, Paris just wrestles to his level. He's a 3rd place guy. Certainly Dake could have won the tournament. Certainly Snyder could have taken 3rd. And if you just tweak those things, like you said, Spencer's one scramble out of being a gold medalist, and it's his first senior world team. I think the other thing we forget, and you probably do a better job of reminding me of this than anybody, Spencer Lee has not been healthy for years. So I want to say this for the record, because Mark and I talk a lot. Like, Mark's my homie. But we talk a lot about wrestling. One of the reasons why I asked Mark to come on and do the podcast, because I would talk to him about all the stuff I was going to do on the podcast. And I was like, you should just do it with me. And you've been amazing. You're a huge asset to the podcast. And mark this down, because I don't say very many nice things to you, okay? But I mean, we talked about, I remember telling you, I don't think Spencer Lee's ever going to make it to the Olympic trials. Okay. And that, I want to be clear, that was not a shot at him. Like, I didn't think he was good enough, didn't have the heart, didn't have the desire. He couldn't stay healthy. And he kept wrestling. And you're like, in hindsight, it looks wrong, right? But at the time, I don't think that was crazy. Like, you disagreed with me, and you, as usual, you were right. But I don't think it was like an absurd take, right? Like, I think, like, listen, this guy's got a knee brace that, like, if he had to weigh in with that, he'd have to wrestle 74 kilos, and, like, if you look at it now, like the NSA title, like, nothing against Matt Ramos, but the next year Matt Ramos doesn't place and Spencer Lee's the Olympic silver medalist, kind of tells you that match was a statistical outlier, just like the DeSanto matches last year in high school. Like, he lost these matches fair and square, but they were both because of injury. And I don't know if Spencer will go another quad, because I don't know what it's like to be that good. You don't know what it's like to be that good. But to be that good and your body just won't cooperate. Like, hey, when my body's healthy, I just mess everybody up. And for, to be at that level now where it's just difficult. I mean, now the good news for him is here's a perfect example of a guy who should sit to Final X, right? Like, get healthy, rehab. If it's possible, get stronger with your grip and forearms. Start doing pull-ups with Tony Cassiope or somebody like that hanging off of you, Ben Keeter. But get healthy and get mentally healthy, right? Like, get perspective on this. And I'm not, like, again, I lost in the junior college finals and I was heartbroken. And I felt like I lost on a bad call. And it's life. You get over it. You get perspective on it. Spencer didn't get hosed. He also wrestled an amazing tournament. You tech fall 2 people at the Olympics. I don't care if you win 1-1-1-1-1-1. Like, you won them. Like, nobody's criticizing Stevan Misic for how he won the 23 Worlds.
Nope. And he came back in every single match he was down.
Misic?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
So
anyway.
But just so people know, the sky's not falling for United States freestyle men's wrestling. It's not even close. We're going to be really good. David, we talked a few days ago about who we predicted to be the 2018. And it was kind of fun to do.
Who's in the pipeline? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was fun to do. We're talking about it, who we think's going to be where. But for Spencer, I think he'll take the rest of this year off. I think he'll still train. And I think you're going to find out at Worlds in 2025. I think he'll wrestle there. If he makes a team, which I project he will, and if he does well, I think we'll see him in LA in 28. I think that will be his motivation, is to win Worlds in 25, and that will get him where he needs to be.
Yeah, and I think
that's my opinion.
No. I mean, I think either way, he's got contractual situations with a gear company and a club. So I think one way or another, he probably stays in the sport. Wrestling, I think financially it makes sense for him to do that, like a lot of these guys. I mean, I think if realistically, quick summary on the men's and women's side, like, I think Sarah Hildebrand, good chance she's done. I don't know about Dom. 99% sure Helen's done. Kayla was kind of the same age, so I don't know. Amit, super young. Blade, super young. Spencer, we just talked about him. Zane, pretty sure he's done. Dake, I have no knowledge of this. I'm guessing RTC coach at Oklahoma State. Just putting it out there. Brooks feels like another cycle. Snyder feels like another cycle. Paris, football or another cycle / football. Okay. And we're over our time, but Gary's great when, we're not rambling. So, by the way, quick sidebar, congratulations to Iowa State on getting their 4th place trophy. Somehow,
that was neat.
Tongue in cheek, somehow the NCAA figured out a way to save that $4 million they were going to lose on these trophies. But it's super cool. Like, you could cut the trophy, the box open and FaceTime with the team. And we both have a lot of respect for Dresser. I did a podcast with Dresser a couple months ago that I think Gary's going to put up shortly. We're out of time, but congratulations to Iowa State. Like, it could have been any team in the country. Could have been any team in the country that took 4th. It's absolute garbage that they wouldn't make them a trophy.
And just so that people understand also, if you go to Flow Wrestling, they just came out with the preseason seeds, which...
No, they didn't come out with the preseason seeds. They just reposted what they did in May.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Okay. Those are wrong. We know for sure there's several people with the wrong weights. Okay.
Well, there always is, David.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is we do the same thing. We used to rank them the Tuesday after NCAAs just to have a working template. You start sliding people around. So it's not a criticism. I'm just saying they haven't updated it. That's not an updated version.
All right. I'm ready. I'm ready for NCAA rankings.
Well, Okay. U17s. Okay. U17s are going on. So in Amman, Jordan, let's pray for everybody's safety. And I'm being sincere about that. It's not the safest place in the world. A bunch of stud athletes on the freestyle and Greco team there. My guy Joe Jeter's on that team. I got a chance to corner him in Vegas. Been talking to his dad a lot. Rooting for those guys. And we're gonna hang up, but then I gotta call you back on the Zoom because we gotta record our fantasy football draft order. So
Oh boy.
All right. So for Grant, who will be back with us next week, for Mark, and for myself, we appreciate you guys watching and listening. Thank you so much. We'll see you all next week.